What do you do when the only way to save the world is to destroy the one thing that gave you life? In the ancient forest of Alarin, Kael is the devoted guardian of the sky tree, a sacred being that raised him, loved him, and binds the land in harmony. But when a buried corruption begins to bleed through its core, Kael uncovers a truth older than the tree itself. The sky tree is not just life, it's a lock. And what lies within is waking. To stop it, Kael must make an unthinkable choice. One that will sever his soul, betray his people, and set the forest ablaze. Hello family, welcome to Storytime with Imzi. Please subscribe and like, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The forest of Alarin stirred with ancient breath, a hush deeper than silence, alive with the pulse of roots and stars. Morning light, golden and thick, filtered through leaves so wide they shimmered like emerald sails. The air smelled of moss, dew, and something older. The slow exhale of a world that remembered before men ever walked it. Kael moved barefoot through the underbrush, careful not to disturb the mushrooms blooming like tiny lanterns beneath the shade of a whispering fern. His robes were moss-green, bark-brown, woven not from cloth but living vines and wool taken only from sheep who offered it willingly. A circlet of silver wood crowned his tangled hair, and his eyes gleamed the color of wet stone, soft, steady, and old beyond his years. Before him rose the sky tree. It did not simply grow, it reigned. A tower of life whose trunk was wider than any hall, whose branches tangled with the clouds, whose leaves shimmered with silver veins of magic. It pulsed faintly, rhythmically, like a slumbering heart, and each beat echoed through the roots of the forest, through the soil, through Kael's feet, through his chest. He knelt. His hands rested gently on the thick, living bark. Warm. The sky tree was never cold. Not even in winter. "I'm here," he whispered. A soft sigh rustled the leaves high above. No wind, just presence. The kind only druids could feel, and Kael most of all. He had been born beneath this tree during a storm so violent it split hills open like eggs. His mother died in the birthing, and the sky tree, so the elders said, took pity. It raised him like one of its own. Roots cradled his cradle. Leaves shielded him from rain. Dreams of its memories came to him in sleep. He had never left the forest. Never needed to. What more did one need than magic and trees and the quiet voice of something older than the sun? Kael stood, placing one hand on the gnarled, knot near the base of the trunk. His fingers glowed faintly, a druid's bond, and in his mind, he felt the murmurs of the tree. Not words. Feelings. Emotions. A deep, settling joy. A curiosity. A contentment that spread through him like tea on a cold day. He smiled. "You missed me." Another breath in the branches. A warm breeze kissed his face in response. And then something strange. A flicker. A momentary shudder in the roots below. Just a tremor. Barely there. Kael's smile faded. The sky tree quieted. Not asleep, not yet. But watchful. Waiting. He lowered his hands slowly. Something had changed. Not broken, not yet. But the forest never twitched without reason. And neither did the sky tree. Kael turned his eyes to the horizon, beyond the golden canopy, toward the mountains in the distance that had not whispered in centuries. A crow cawed once overhead, harsh, sudden, sharp like the crack of old bone. Alarin was still, but not silent. Not anymore. The tremor lingered in Kael's bones long after it faded from the soil. He wandered the groves with quiet steps, listening, not with ears, but with his skin, his breath, his bond to the wild. The birds still sang, the wind still swayed the trees, but there was a tightness in the air now, a coiling. Like the forest was holding its breath. He returned to the sky tree the next morning with the dawn still cracking open the sky. Mist curled around its base like sleepy ghosts, and dew clung to every leaf, glinting as though the stars had fallen and taken shelter in the canopy. That's when he saw it. A thick vein of sap ran down the sky tree's trunk, darker than usual. Not gold, not the pale green of healthy magic, but black. Like tar. Like shadow made liquid. Kael stepped closer, heart thudding, and reached out. The sap was warm to the touch, too warm, and pulsing with a slow, irregular beat. Like something sick. Something resisting death, but failing. He pressed his hand against the bark nearby, hoping for the familiar surge of shared breath, the communion of spirit. But the bond felt wrong. Jagged, dimmed. Images flared in his mind. Flashes of fire beneath the earth, a twisting root splitting in agony, a low groan echoing through tunnels that had never seen sun. The sky tree was showing him its pain, its sickness, its fear. He staggered back. No, the corruption wasn't spreading fast, not yet. But it had touched the core. He could feel that, more than anything. This wasn't a wound of the flesh. It was something deeper. Something seeding itself from within, poisoning not just the tree, but its memory. Its soul. Kael sank to his knees and whispered druidic words of healing, old and sacred, his voice shaking as he traced sigils into the soil with trembling fingers. But the tree gave no answer. It merely wept more of that dark sap, a tear rolling down its bark like blood. By noon, the council had gathered. 7 druids in robes of root and storm, elders all. They stood in the circle of stones beneath the sky tree's boughs, faces creased and somber. Some leaned on staffs grown from their own heartwood, others with animals coiled around their shoulders, owls, foxes, serpents. All bore the mark of the grove. Kael stood before them, hands stained with black sap. It's in the core, he told them. Not from outside. It's born from the tree itself. The eldest, Saren of the Silver Thorn, frowned. Her voice cracked like old parchment. Impossible. The sky tree is pure. It was, Kael replied, voice low. Something is awakening. Something the tree can't fight. Whispers passed between the druids like wind through reeds. Some looked to the tree, others to the sky. One knelt to feel the roots. But none spoke of action. Finally, Saren said, we will meditate. Seek deeper signs. But the tree has stood for 5,000 years. It will not fall to a fever. Kael's hands clenched. And if it's more than that? What if it's not just the tree? What if it spreads? No answer. Only silence. Only the sound of leaves rustling with unease. That night, Kael returned alone. The sky tree groaned quietly under the stars, and the sap still flowed, darker now. He placed his palm on the trunk again, more gently this time. I won't let you suffer, he whispered. I swear it. From the roots, a faint heartbeat answered. But it was weaker now. And afraid. The forest floor had grown restless. Creatures that once made their homes in the shade of the sky tree now lingered at the edges of the grove, twitching, silent. The rabbits no longer played. The foxes no longer sang. Even the owls, sacred watchers of the night, had taken to roosting far from the trunk. Kael felt it every time he walked the inner ring, the invisible line where life hesitated to cross. The rot was still unseen to most. But Kael felt it. He didn't sleep. Not really. He sat beneath the boughs, leaning against the sky tree's ancient bark, eyes closed, his thoughts sinking deeper with every breath. He sought communion. A true bond. Not just emotion, but memory. The sky tree could share echoes. It remembered everything. And in the quiet of that night, as stars wheeled slowly above and the bark pressed warm against his spine, the tree opened its soul. Kael fell inward. He was not dreaming. He stood at the base of the sky tree again. But it was younger, brighter, surrounded by nothing but open sky and bare hills. Before the forest. Before the druids. Before everything. At its center pulsed a light, a seed the size of a man's head, floating at the heart of the trunk, glowing with woven threads of silver and green. The source. The beginning of the sky tree. The soul of Alarin. And it was fractured. A hairline crack ran through its center, oozing slow threads of shadow that slithered into the roots below. Kael stepped closer, and the world twisted. Flashes, not memories but visions. A battle beneath the earth. Creatures of black flame bound in chains of bark and stone. A great pact forged in desperation. The seed was never meant to grow here. It had been planted as a lock, not a gift. A prison disguised as life. And now the lock was weakening. Kael gasped and tore out of the vision, sweat pouring from his skin, his heart clawing against his ribs. He stumbled forward and touched the tree, panting. You were never just a tree, he whispered. You're a gate. The sky tree didn't respond, but its bark beneath his fingers throbbed once, weak but true. He had to go deeper. The druids forbade travel into the heartwood, the hollow chamber within the sky tree's trunk. It was said to be a sacred place where only the first druid once walked, centuries ago. But Kael had no time for ancient warnings. He found the knot in the bark, a hidden entrance long forgotten, half sealed by magic. It pulsed when he touched it, recognizing him. It parted with a sound like exhaling breath. Inside, the world changed. The heartwood was a spiraling chamber of light and memory. The walls of the inner trunk glowed with ancient glyphs, dancing and shifting like living stories. Roots coiled like serpents overhead. At its very center hovered the seed, suspended in air, spinning slowly, cracked and weeping both light and shadow. Kael approached, legs heavy with dread. The closer he came, the more clearly he saw it. That thin fracture running deep, branching like veins. From it bled a presence, not loud but wrong. A hunger too patient to be human. And Kael felt it stir. It knew he was there. A single whisper coiled around the chamber, like the rustling of dead leaves. I was promised release. Kael staggered back. No. The seed flared once, pulsing bright, and then the light dimmed, leaving only the dark crack glowing faintly in the dim. He knew now. This corruption wasn't an invader. It was contained evil, bleeding through a failing seal. A sacrifice once made by the forest itself to keep something darker locked away. But time had worn down the walls. And now the sky tree, guardian and jailer, was dying from within. Kael stood frozen, and the truth struck like lightning through his chest. To save Alarin, he might have to kill the sky tree. Not a tree, not a symbol, but the very thing he had loved, all his life, more than anyone, more than anything. His mother, his home, his soul. Kael's voice shook. I don't know if I can. From deep within the seed, the voice whispered again, this time quieter. Then I will. And the chamber fell into silence. The druids listened in silence, their faces carved from the same stone as the circle they stood within. The forest around them swayed in uneasy rhythm, as if Alarin itself waited for their answer. Kael stood alone at the center, shoulders tight, clothes still stained with black sap. His voice had just finished echoing against the stones. He had told them everything, the corrupted seed, the truth of the sky tree's purpose, the whisper that spoke from within. No one moved. You're saying, murmured Elder Thren, voice brittle with disbelief, that the sky tree, the soul of the world, is a prison? Kael's voice was hoarse. Yes, a living seal, for something that was never meant to wake. There was a moment of incredulous silence. Then Elder Marin, ever calm and unreadable, narrowed her eyes. And this knowledge came to you through a dream? A vision, conveniently experienced alone? I stood in the heartwood, Kael snapped. I saw the fracture. I heard the voice. The corruption isn't just spreading. It's calling. It's waiting. You broke sacred law, Marin replied. No one has walked the heartwood since the first grove. I didn't walk it out of pride. Kael's eyes flared. I went because no one else would see what's dying right in front of them. Elder Saren raised her hand. Her voice was quiet, but it held the weight of centuries. If what you say is true, then the sky tree must be preserved more than ever. It is all that stands between that ancient evil and our world. Kael's heart sank. You don't understand. The seal is failing. It's incomplete. Holding on by threads. If we wait, it will break. It won't be a tree anymore. It will be a doorway. And what would you propose? Saren asked, turning her silver gaze on him. Destroy it? Burn the heart of Alarin? Sever the world from its memory, its balance, its breath. Kael faltered. He swallowed. I don't know what it will take. But it can't remain as it is. Then leave it to the council, Marin said. We will convene. We will investigate. As we have always done. As we have always done. The phrase twisted in Kael's gut. The forest was dying, the tree was weeping blood, and they wanted to convene? No, Kael said, stepping back, hands clenched. You'll wait until it's too late. You don't feel it like I do. Because you're too close, Marin said sharply. That tree is your mother, your teacher, your god. But we are druids. We must not love blindly. And neither should you. Kael's throat closed. Not love blindly. As if he hadn't already known the price. Saren's voice softened but did not yield. You are dismissed from council matters until further review. Rest. Meditate. When your mind clears, we will speak again. Kael stared at them, one by one. The elders he had trained under, who had held him as a child, who who had blessed his first bond to the forest. And none of them believed. He turned without another word. The grove was colder now, the sky grayer than it had been. The sky tree's leaves rustled faintly as he passed beneath them, and Kael felt the pain like a dull knife in his heart. The bond between them, once radiant and clear, now pulsed with something dark, strained, uncertain. He stopped at the edge of the glade and looked back. The council stood like statues in the mist. And Kael realized something simple. Something terrifying. He was alone. No more elders. No more guidance. The path forward would not be shown to him in bark or dreams. It would be carved by him alone. And somewhere beneath his grief, a thought took root. If no one else would act, he would. The wind that followed Kael into the deadlands was dry and bitter, stripped of song. Trees here didn't sway, they stood frozen, skeletal. The sky seemed thinner, the light dimmer, as though Alarin itself had turned its face away. At the edge of a crumbling cliff, he found the entrance, a stone mouth choked with ivy and cracked wards, half sunken into the earth. The Archive of Embers. It had been sealed for over a century, after the last druid who dared enter burned herself alive from within. The place held forbidden magic, knowledge rooted not in harmony, but in sacrifice. Kael's fingers brushed the ward. It sparked, flared, then yielded. The sky tree's mark on his skin pulsed faintly in response. The doors groaned open. Inside, the archive was silent. Scrolls lay in heaps of ash. Shelves bent under the weight of time. At its heart stood a brazier blackened with old soot, untouched by moss or decay, as if even rot feared what lingered here. Kael circled it, breathing slowly. He'd read about soulfire in the old grove texts, always in whispers. Not a spell, not a flame, a rite. Fire born from memory and intention. It did not consume like ordinary fire. It erased. He unwrapped the black shard from the seed's chamber and placed it beside the brazier. Then, with shaking hands, he assembled the ritual. A lock of his hair, a drop of corrupted sap, a crow's feather he'd plucked on his way north. And last, the incantation, spoken not aloud but from deep within. The fire answered. It rose in silence, white and flickering like breath in cold air. There was no heat, only pressure, like standing at the edge of a great fall. Kael stared into it. If he used this spell on the sky tree, the bond would be severed. Forever. The whispers would stop. The dreams would fade. He would become something less than druid, maybe less than man. But the corruption would die with it. There would be no healing. Only release. He knelt beside the brazier, gripping the shard of bark. It pulsed once in his hand, warm. Familiar. As if the tree still remembered him, still loved him. "I'm sorry," he whispered. The fire offered no judgment. Only silence. The sky tree stood still when Kael returned. Its silver-veined leaves hung heavy, darker than before. The air around it was thick, not with fog, but with a quiet grief. Birds no longer nested in its branches. Even the moss along its roots had begun to brown. Kael approached slowly, the spell sealed inside him like a second heart. Soulfire had changed him. His breath felt heavier, his bond to the forest quieter. Distant. The sky tree no longer reached for him. It only waited. He placed a hand on the bark. No warmth. Just a faint vibration, like a dying breath. "I'm here," he said. The tree answered, not in voice but memory. Images flooded his mind, old ones. A boy climbing branches. A fox cub curled beside him in the roots. Rainstorms turned gentle by leafy shelter. His mother's face, smiling in the light that filtered down through glowing leaves. A life shaped by this tree. Loved by it. Raised in its shadow. He fell to his knees. Tears rolled freely down his face as he touched his forehead to the trunk. "I don't want to do this," he whispered. And still nothing stopped him. Because the tree understood. Because it wanted release. Roots shifted subtly beneath the earth. A final gesture. Not resistance, permission. Kael stood. He stepped back, raised his arms, and began the ritual. White fire bloomed in the air around him, swirling silently as the soul fire ignited. It curled through the clearing like breath held too long, gentle, sorrowful, inevitable. The first flame touched the bark. The sky tree shuddered. A low groan rippled through its trunk, not of pain but of farewell. The leaves caught fire one by one, glowing like falling stars. Light poured from every crack in the bark as the flames found the seed at its core. The earth trembled. A great sigh passed through the roots of the forest. And then silence. Where the sky tree had stood, there was only ash. No stump, no smoke, just a circle of black soil, and at its center, a single green sprout no taller than Kael's hand. He stared at it for a long time, chest hollow. Then he fell to his knees beside it, unsure whether to weep or pray. The forest did not sing for days. Where once the sky tree's roots stretched like veins of life beneath the glade, there was now only scorched earth, quiet, unnatural. No birds came. No wind stirred. Even the stars above the clearing seemed reluctant to shine. Kael remained there, unmoving. Ash clung to his skin, to his breath, to his thoughts. The soul fire had vanished the moment the tree fell. No smoke, no embers. Just a silence that stretched too long. He sat beside the sprout that had survived the burning. Pale green, delicate, no thicker than a blade of grass. It should not have lived. But it had. Something endured. Still, the bond was gone. He could no longer feel the heartbeat of the land. The roots did not murmur to him. The magic that had always answered his touch was now quiet, distant, like a voice behind a locked door. He had become untethered. A druid without a grove. A guardian without a charge. Rain came 3 days after the fire. Soft, slow, and cold. It fell on the ash without sound, turning it to black mud. Kael let it soak through his cloak, through his hair. He didn't move. But the sprout drank. It swayed faintly in the windless air, growing just a little taller, its first leaf unfurling with quiet defiance. Kael stared at it, empty and full all at once. "I'm still here," he murmured. Not to anyone in particular. Not to the gods, nor the wind, nor the earth. Just to himself. And maybe, just maybe, to the thing he had destroyed. Because he hadn't come to hate the sky tree. He never would. But he had done what love sometimes demanded. He had let it go. Seasons passed. The forest did not forget, it never truly does, but it changed. Slowly, cautiously, green returned to the blackened glade. Not the ancient brilliance of the sky tree, but wild, unpredictable growth. Twisting vines, strange blossoms, mushrooms that glowed softly in moonlight. The old balance was gone. In its place, something new. Kael wandered now. No longer part of the circle, no longer called druid by those who remained. Some feared him. Others pitied him. A few quietly understood. He carried the memory of the sky tree in a small pouch over his heart, a shard of bark not consumed by the soul fire. It no longer pulsed. It was cool, quiet, a relic. But it reminded him. He had loved the tree. He still did. And he had destroyed it. Not for hatred. Not for power. But because sometimes, to protect what remains, you must end what once was. He returned to the glade only once each season. The sprout had grown into a slender sapling now, twisted and strange, with silver-speckled leaves unlike any tree Kael had ever known. It was not the sky tree reborn. It was something else. A question. A beginning. He knelt beside it in spring, brushing his hand gently against its bark. This time he felt something. A flicker. Faint, unfamiliar. Not the sky tree's warmth. Not its wisdom. But the heartbeat of a child, not yet awake. Kael smiled, tears gathering behind his eyes. The bond would never be the same. But perhaps, one day, something would grow from the grief. Not a replacement. Not a god. Just a tree, unburdened by prisons, secrets, or ancient debts. He stood, wind catching his cloak, and turned to leave. Behind him, the sapling swayed in the breeze, and one silver-edged leaf fluttered gently to the ground. It did not whisper, but it listened.